Nice. So good morning, everybody. It's really a pleasure to have all of you with us this morning here through Zoom for our event of June, right, with Professor Lêda Tomitch. So she will be talking to us this morning about how to teach so students remember and learn the importance of levels of processing and involvement load and input organization in L2 learning. So first, we need to start presenting a little bit our MBE, right? Because we are, I think somebody's with the microphone on, maybe? Yeah, so we are Brastiço, right? So Brastiço was founded in 1986, and it's Brazil's largest association of teachers of English to speakers of other languages. It is a nonprofit organization with a membership of over 2,000 professionals, and it's an affiliate of TESOL International, the US, and a member of IATELF in UK. So the organization is also a member of the Southern Cone TESOL group, formed by associations from Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Peru, Colombia, and Chile. So welcome everybody, members and non-members of the BT, right? We welcome you. And we have in the MBE, the Mind, Brain, and Education Special Interest Group. Our mission is to understand how our brain works, eliminating false information about the brain and learning. Also to learn how to better use all the abilities we possess, using this knowledge about universal aspects of learning to improve teaching practices. Also to comprehend the boundaries of our individualities, turning them into enablers for the formation and development of capabilities, both inside and outside the classroom. As our fourth objective in our mission is to bridge the gap between the lab, the laboratory, and the classroom, opening avenues of collaboration in the transdisciplinary area of neuroscience, education, and psychology. And last but not least, it is also to inform Brastiço's members and the wider teaching community about collaborative and cooperative learning for an evidence-based practice of the art of teaching. So I am Cynthia Byler, so I am one of the people responsible for the Special Interest Group organization, along with Luis, André, and Rudy, who are also here, and our mentor, Mirella, right? So we invite you to join us in our social media. I will put the links on the chat later, right? We also have a WhatsApp group. So as soon as you associate to BT and choose our SIG as one of the SIGs you are interested in getting to know more about, we are going to invite you also to our WhatsApp group, right? So let me just introduce briefly, because this talk is not about Cynthia talking, right? You are here to listen to Professor Lêda, and just to present her. So she's a professor at the Federal University of Santa Catarina. She holds a master's degree in Letras, English and Literature, and a PhD also in Letras, focusing on applied linguistics from UFSC. She was a postdoc in the language processing area at the Center for Cognitive Brain Imaging at the Carnegie Mellon University, and also at the Center for Brain Research in Auckland University, New Zealand. So she's a very knowledgeable person interested in researching the relationship between working memory capacity and written comprehension and production, the implementation of reading component processes in the human brain, as well as the teaching of reading. So we are so happy to have you with us this morning, Professor Lêda. So welcome to our event, and the floor is all yours.
So thank you very much for the very warm words, Cynthia. It is really a pleasure to be here today. I would like to thank the organizers of Brastiço, MBE SIG, and someone has the mic open.
I think it's closed now.
So no, it's okay. So thank you very much for the invitation. And when we were talking about choosing the topic, I have just given a course on individual differences in reading comprehension, and many theories came to mind again from all these years studying reading and the mind and the brain and everything. And I thought that these three theories, in fact, they have a lot to do with each other, and they have implications for the classroom. So that's why I chose to try to put, okay? So, enough for this. Well, I hope now I can move my slides.
Here, yeah,
Okay.
now it's moving, yeah.
Okay.
It's showing Mary Spranger's book, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, in fact, I have to say that the first inspiration for this talk came from a book by Mary Spranger. The first edition is from 2005. And the title, the very title is How to Teach So Students Remember. She has a second edition, very recent, 2018. And I came across this book in, well, the one in Portuguese is from 2008, so a little before that, I think 2006 or 7, when I was invited by ArtMed to be a reviewer of the translation of her book. And it was a wonderful experience, and I didn't know the book at all. So we have the book in Portuguese by ArtMed, Memória, Como Ensinar para o Aluno Lembrar. So that's how I came across the book, and I was fascinated by the way she brings findings from memory, the brain, neuroscience into the classroom, okay? All right, so very briefly, I'm going to give this very brief introduction, and then I'm going to go straight into the first theory, which is the levels of processing theory and learning by Craig and Lockhart, 1972, and then they follow on separate articles, 2002. And I think it's one of the most cited articles in the area. And in fact, the involvement load hypothesis by Houston and Loffer is based on the levels of processing theory, okay? And then I'm going to talk about, it's a chapter, in fact, in a book by Justin Carpenter, 1997, one of the seminal books in the area, which is called The Psychology of Reading Comprehension. So the organization part that I am going to talk about comes from here. And to finish, I'll get to Spranger's, she calls them, the framework she calls 7 R's. So, and she calls this a brain compatible teaching. And then my closing words. So I'm going to begin with this question, and I would like someone to open their mic and try to say, I don't know if I can see the chat, but anyway, so the question is so obvious. Why do we teach? Why do we teach?
Lêda, I can help you with the chat. Nothing yet.
Okay. Come on, everyone. I'm sure you are all teachers, or even if you are a learner, you know why you would like to be taught.
Bruno has written on the chat, we teach so that students learn, and he put
yeah, wow, it seems so obvious, right? But because we want our students to learn. I had the answer here, very good. But what if I tell you, I don't know if you can see the whole curve because I can't. So what if I tell you that 20 minutes later, the students are only going to have in their memory 58%, and then 1 hour 44, 36, and after 31 days, like only 21%. So, yeah, how can we solve this problem, right? Because forgetting is going to happen. And this was, in fact, shown back in 1880 in two studies, one from 1880, another one from 1885 by Ebbinghaus. And this study has been praised. It was carried so long ago, and the rigor of the method, the methodology. So, and the results have been extensively replicated in the literature. So what's the way out? What can we do so that we teach and students remember, and not only remember, they use this information, they show that they have learned by using in new contexts, because this is the objective, right? So how can scientific findings inform what we as teachers can do in our classrooms to ensure this enduring and autonomous learning that we want our students to have? Because I'm sure that every one of us, every teacher is going to say, well, I hope in the future my student can use this content in some context and say, oh, I learned this so long ago, I can't even remember the name of the teacher. Right? So I don't want my students to remember my name. I want them to be able to use this content that I brought to the classroom, and that inspired them to learn more, right? To gain more knowledge about that. So one way out of this forgetting curve is by processing the input in depth. And this was brought back in 1972 by Crick and Lockhart with the levels of processing theory and learning. So they suggest that it's not the explicit intention to memorize something, nor the time that you devote to it, but the stimulus encoding process that is important for later retrieval, the way this actually happened. So the depth with which the stimulus is processed determines retention and learning. So what is this depth of processing? This diagram is from Cuni, Vaz, and Bueno. They are Brazilians, but the text is in Portuguese in the Journal of Psychology and Neuroscience. And they put, as I told you, this the levels of processing framework has been again and again and again reviewed, yes, and reinforced. So here they talk about the theory, and they put the levels of processing in this continuum that goes from a very shallow level to a deeper level. And the example, very simple example with the word pen, right? So if you as the teacher, if you ask, how many vowels does the word contain, right? So this would be a very shallow level, because you're going to be working with perceptual processing, with visual analysis. Then if you go a little bit further to phonemic processing, auditory analysis, and ask word rhymes with tool, and the deep processing would involve semantic analysis. So is it an object used to write? And of course, we could move on and, for example, if you ask students to use the word pen in a sentence or in a text, so the level of processing would go deeper and deeper, right? And in terms of reading comprehension, yes? Oh no, okay. I thought someone was asking a question. So, well, those who were my students, they know I built this diagram the first time I read a chapter on reading by Ganey, Ekovich, and Ekovich, in this book, The Cognitive Psychology of School Learning. And I'm not going to talk about the whole thing, but it's just to show you that even in terms of reading comprehension, there are levels of comprehension. So decoding would be this a very low level. And then literal comprehension and inferential comprehension, comprehension monitoring would be the highest level, okay? So we could say that decoding would be the shallow level in the levels of processing theory. Literal comprehension, a little moving, a little not so shallow. Inferential comprehension, then deeper, right? And comprehension monitoring, where the reader would be in total control. A strategic reader, setting a goal for reading, selecting the strategies, while reading, checking whether this goal is working, remediating if it's not actually working, okay? So I'm going to give you an example so that you understand what I am talking about in terms connecting the levels of processing framework to the levels of comprehension. So now I'm going to ask you to imagine that you are a learner of Portuguese as an L2, and you say, oh. And I ask you in Portuguese, because, right? Leiam o texto a seguir com o objetivo de compreendê-lo. Estejam preparados para responder as perguntas que virão depois. And you go, okay, let's see. So are you ready? In the classroom, I would just leave you reading this. Well, Cynthia, maybe you can read this for the audience.
Oh gosh, let's try our best, right? Era uma vez dois traféunos, Mirimi e Gicitar. Os dois traféunos eporavam longe das perlogas. Um masto, porém, um dos traféunos, Mirimi, feonou que ramalia risar, e Aror, uma perloga. Gicitar regou muito. Ele rurbia que Mirimi não risaria mais da perloga. Gicitar feonou, feonou, regou, regou, mais nada. Mirimi estava leroado. Ramalia risar e Aror uma perloga. No maço do fabete, Mirimi risou muito lonto. No meio do fabete, pro seu Gicitar e os dois risaram até li. Gicitar não ramalia clenar Mirimi.
Okay, so now the questions I promised, right? As perguntas que eu prometi. Quem eram os dois traféunos? Anyone, just open your mic. I'm gonna leave, oh, I'm a very good teacher, very nice. I'm gonna leave the text here. Quem eram os traféunos?
Let's see on the chat. Vinicius said, I don't know.
Mirimi e Gicitar.
Yes.
Yes, very good. Wow. Onde eporavam? Onde eporavam?
Longe
das perlogas.
Yes, wow, I have a very nice class. O que aconteceu, Masto? Don't be afraid. O que aconteceu, Masto?
I know the answer. Come on, people.
Mirimi risou muito lonto.
I think it's a little before that.
Yeah, before that, you're going to...
I don't know.
Felnou
que Maria risar e Aroro uma perloga.
Yes! Uau! Na linha 7, a quem se refere o pronome ele?
Who is he?
De citar.
Wow, my goodness. Wonderful students.
We are the best, Lêda.
No. I can't see the question here because something is covering. Is it a question, Cynthia?
No, it's not. We
Because
just.
I don't want to give the answer. Yeah, I don't want to give the
Yeah,
answer.
not yet.
Okay.
Now.
Okay. Quem felnou? Quem felnou?
De citar.
Yes, wow. Merimi estava leruado para quê?
Ramalia, risar e aro uma perloga.
Wow, my goodness, very good. O que aconteceu no mastro do Fabete?
Mirimi risou muito lonto.
Wow. No, I'm so happy that my teaching is working. Thank you. Por que Jessica risou com Mirimi?
Why, people?
Por que Jessica risou com Mirimi? Essa talvez um pouquinho mais difícil.
Porque no meio do alfabeto procedeu de citar.
Jessica não ramalia Clenar Mirimi. Até agora só uma, né? Almost all the answers right, but in fact this last one is the most difficult one. So congratulations, and congratulations to me, your teacher, because you got everything right, right? No. Because in fact, you only got the literal comprehension level, which is, well, it's a necessary level for comprehension, but it's only the literal level, right? It's shallow. So if I ask you to retell the story, how much can you remember? Are you able to give a summary of the story? Maybe you're going to remember names, maybe some verbs, I don't know, right? But it would be very difficult to, in fact, give a summary of this text. And why? Because you processed it at this shallow level, right? Of course, if you just try to memorize the text, if you went back and I asked you to memorize the text, okay, go home and memorize the text. So probably the next day you would come and you would just parrot out the whole text, right? But this would not show that you actually comprehended, right? Because this shows that you were able to comprehend the text in one level, which is the literal comprehension level, okay? So we have to be very careful as teachers because this happens a lot. And the reason I brought this text and I like to use it with those who teach English, Brazilian speakers of Portuguese, it's because then you have a feeling of what the students, how they feel in the class, right? When they read the text and you ask questions and then they get the questions right, but in fact, they haven't understood, well, not a thing, but they haven't actually made the necessary inferences, right? In order to comprehend the text inferentially. Okay, so superficial processing leads only to shallow short-term retention, whereas deep processing leads to efficient, durable retention and learning. This is what research has shown, okay? Now, the second theory by Houston and Loffer from 2001, in fact, this theory, and in this article, they talk about the learning of vocabulary only. And I am bringing this here today, just making this elaboration, this inference. And you're going to tell me if you agree with me, because I think it really works. Oh, I cannot see you. Something happened. Wow. Okay. Yes. So they brought the involvement load hypothesis based on the levels of processing theory to explain vocabulary learning, right? And they took into account also the criticisms that the theory had received by Anderson, by Badley, and others. And they proposed that retention of new information depends on the amount and the quality of attention that you pay to various aspects of words. They're talking about vocabulary, right? So rich qualitative and numerous quantitative associations with existing knowledge increase the chances that the new information will be retained, okay? And elaboration here would be a key process, because what is necessary for you to remember? Some authors, like Oswald, they say, oh, you have to create an address in memory for the new information, right? So creating this address is like having connections, connecting the new information with the new coming from the input, for example, the text, or if you're teaching any other skill, listening, reading, writing, doesn't matter, right? So the new information or the content, right? Teaching history, geography, yes? So when you are able to access meanings that you have in memory and bring to working memory in order to connect with this new input, okay? So Anderson and Pearson also, they talk about this. So the more you elaborate on the new input, that is, the more connections you are able to make, the richer these connections, and as Houston and Loffer say, also in terms of numbers, right? The more connections you make and the richer connections you make, this is going to ensure that this information is going to be there, retention. You are going to be able to access it when you need it, retrieval, and you are going to be able to use it in a new context, learning, right? And of course, as teachers, this is what we want our students to do, right? We want them to have this trace in memory. We want them to be able to access the trace and use it in a new context, right? So they propose then this theory and involvement for them. They bring these three components which would make up involvement. So need, and they call this a motivational dimension. And if the need is created by the teacher, they say that this would be a moderate need, yes? Moderate involvement, sorry. If it comes from the learner himself or herself, then this would be strong, right? So this is another challenge for us teachers, because how can we in fact make our students have this intrinsic motivation, right? This is something that we have to find out in our classrooms, and I think you agree with me that you have to know your students, right? we have to know our students so that we can actually bring to the classroom something that is going to motivate them enough so that they will feel a need to learn what we are bringing to the classroom, right? Another dimension would be search. And here they call this a cognitive dimension. So here, the attempt to find the meaning of an unknown L2 word. So in terms of vocabulary would be, so the student feels the need to learn the word. So maybe he's gonna open a dictionary and look at the meaning of the word himself, okay? Or maybe she's gonna ask someone or ask the teacher, but search for the meaning. And another dimension, which is also cognitive, is evaluation. So comparing the different meanings of a word or assessing its goodness of fit for that specific context, right? So these three components would make up what they call involvement. And then they even have a simple formula to say the level of involvement for an activity, a vocabulary activity in the classroom, okay? And they have this study with L2 learners of English, and they found out that retention was highest in a composition task where learners had to use these 10 to be learned words in a letter, okay? Then below that, lower in a reading comprehension task plus a fill-in. So they gave learners 15 words, 10 gaps, so they had to choose the 10 which actually fitted the gaps. And lowest in a reading comprehension task with with marginal glosses. That is, the 10 words were highlighted and they were glossed in the margins, right? So this tells us that if we bring a text to our students and we just give them the translation of the word or include glossary, this would be a very shallow level, right? Of course, I understand that, in fact, all this can be done in the classroom because we cannot go straight to the higher level, even in terms of working with those comprehension levels in the classroom. So it's not that, okay, now Lêda is telling us that the inferential level is the one. No, all those processes, they have to happen, right? First, the student has to learn how to decode, right? It's not actually in proficient reading. I'm going back there. So in proficient reading, decoding, literal comprehension, and inferential comprehension are going to happen in parallel, simultaneously. So the text is going to be processed in the depth. Of course, this also has to do with purpose, right? In the depth, depending on the purpose of the activity, the purpose that the learner, the reader has set for that, right? And here, in terms of the vocabulary work that you do in the classroom, I'm going to show you Stockman's model of categorization of vocabulary activities. And as I show you, I would like you to think about where in terms of, how much in terms of involvement, yes, each one of these activities would, if it's shallow, if it's moderate involvement or strong involvement, and even in terms of levels of processing, if it's shallow or deep, okay? So let's see. The first one that she talks about is dictionary work. So the focus is the word. For example, you ask students to copy the words or even give the definition in L1 or L2, or you ask students to underline, to highlight, or you bring images. For her, this would all be dictionary work. Okay? So just have this in mind and think if this is shallow, involves shallow processing, deep processing, and we're going to come back to this. And also in terms of moderate involvement or strong involvement. Another activity would be word unit analysis. So when you teach affixes, prefixes, suffixes, and also teach roots, right? Is this shallow, deep processing? Implies strong or moderate involvement. Another type would be mnemonic activities, here involving the verbal code, acoustic, visual, or both. For example, working with rhymes, with songs, image plus word. Semantic elaboration, so semantic characteristic analysis from attributes given to the word. For example, semantic mapping, semantic ordering, like whole parts, food, rice, beans, meat, analogy, mom, dad, brother, sister, pictorial scheme, different types of diagrams, hierarchical trees, and all that you ask your students to do. And collocation, for example, in the second language, and lexical phrases. Oh, sorry. The collocation here would be the word language. So second would collocate with language. Okay. And lexical phrases, like when you teach these lexical phrases in order to help students, yes, like teaching one of the most common, and then students have to include a noun in there, okay? So my question, as I said before, what is the level of involvement in each of Saltman's categories? Is it moderate, strong? And what is the level of processing in each of these categories, shallow or deep? So collocation, for example, since it is here, collocation, would it involve moderate or strong involvement? What do you think? Are you listening to me? What do you think?
People are writing here strong, Lêda, on the chat.
Strong? Can anyone justify?
Come on. Heidi, Vanessa, do you want to open up your mic? Feel free.
Yeah, very briefly. Well, it's not.
Heidi has written here, because then you are learning the building blocks for the language.
Yeah, that's right. Something that can be used in any other, it's not something wrote. It's more or less, right? But you are teaching students also that words, they do not, they are not separate entities. So the meaning of words acquire slightly different meanings when they come together, right? This is one thing. So definitely it's not shallow. It's in terms of processing, right? Deep. And also it implies some level of involvement between moderate and strong. Yes, it's just that in their case, they say that this need, if the motivation comes from the learner, right? And of course, dictionary work would be in terms of processing, shallow or deep?
People are writing here. One person said to my mind, it's really deep. And some people are writing shallow.
Okay. It's more to the shallow side, right? Because if you just copy, it's the same as in the diagram that I brought. If you count the letters, if you just copy the letters, maybe the definition would be something, if it's not memorized, if the student really understood the definition, would be a little, in terms of involvement and also in terms of depth of processing, a little bit more, right? And affixes, teaching affixes. Teaching prefixes, suffixes, roots. What do you think? Is it shallow, more to the shallow axis, or more to the deep level axis?
People are writing shallow because it's just lexical analysis.
Mm-hmm.
But then some people are writing deep level, more to the deep level. And one person said moderate. Again, you learn the connections.
Yes, because in fact, when you learn affixes, right? And you learn roots, this is going to, you are not just memorizing the word, you are going to be able to use this in other contexts in order to deduce the meaning of other words, just by analyzing the affixes and the roots, right? So I would say that it's not totally shallow, it's more, it's maybe moderate. Okay, because there are other ways which, I don't know. For example, semantic elaboration. When you think about semantic categorization, when you classify the words that are given to you, all scrambled out, and you try to create these, categorize them, or when you build a diagram or a hierarchical tree. So how much involvement and in terms of depth of processing, what do you think? I'm talking about semantic elaboration.
Heidi has written, it's deep. It puts visual images in the learner's head, which makes stronger connections.
Yeah, definitely.
Because she said before that it's all about connections.
Yeah. So you as a teacher, once you know this, of course, in the beginning, you have to actually use simpler, more straightforward things so that even the learner can feel, oh, I was able to do that, right? So you cannot go teach vocabulary going straight to semantic elaboration, right? But you have to have this in mind that at some point you have to start moving in terms of depth of processing, in terms of involvement load, right? And mnemonic activities, giving the visual, acoustic, visual, goals, working with rhymes, image in the words. Is this shallow? Totally shallow. Maybe not, right? So maybe not so shallow, but still not very deep, because we can memorize a rhyme, we can repeat it, you know, be able to verbalize that, but in fact maybe we didn't understand anything. Okay, so it all depends. Okay, so what time is it? Oh my goodness. I have to get there. So now in terms of the organizing part, right? So Justin Carpenter, they say that how much you learn from a text is influenced by several factors such as prior knowledge, the nature of the text, goals and strategies, and these factors, they are also determinants of comprehension, not only learning. But the thing is that comprehension alone is not going to ensure learning, right? You may disagree with me, and then in the end, you may ask the question, okay? So they say, oh, the same thing that Craig and Lockhart said, the intention to learn per se does not directly contribute to learning. The important point is that you have to process the material actively. And what is this active processing? Conscious attention, yes, not relying on automatic processes. You have to impose some kind of organization on this input that is coming. In this case, they're talking about reading, so coming from the text. So use a schema, you have to try to find connections, you have to organize the material. So reading for learning occurs in the context of some goal for how this the learned information is to be used. So before you begin, you have to know, am I learning this because I have to take a test? If it's a test, what type of a test? Is my teacher, I know that she's going to ask me for the definition. So you know how you have to study, right? Wrote, of course, you can understand, but you have to memorize the actual definition. Explaining the definition is not going to be enough for the teacher, right? Or are you reading just to learn the gist, or only specific terms? Or yes, you have to learn word by word. If it's a poem, you know that you cannot replace any of the words, right? You have to memorize all the words. So they say that the key to successful learning would be creating this organizational scheme based on the structure and the content of the text, which can be used to relate this new information to what is already known. I have mentioned this before, right? So reading comprehension processes interpret the information in the text. And this organizational and associative learning mechanism cause the interpreted information to be acquired. So they're talking about strategies, study strategies. So rereading is a study strategy. Is it as effective as outlining or underlining or highlighting or writing a summary or writing a review? Maybe not, right? But study strategies can help in the construction of what they call this organizational scheme, which is imposing your organization to the mass of input that is coming from the text, right? So is rereading shallow or deep processing? Does it involve shallow or deep processing? What do you think?
Somebody who has written shallow?
Yeah, because in fact, rereading does not ensure that you actually comprehend, right? In terms of involvement, well, maybe you yourself decided to reread, so it implies maybe a strong involvement. But this is not going to be a very effective strategy, right? So you are not going to be, rereading does not involve elaboration. evaluation, which is one, remember, in the involvement load, this is one of the components. What about outlining? Outlining, you have a text, and then you just create an outline with what the main idea would be. Maybe I'm just giving an example, right? Create this pictorial representation, this hierarchical tree for the text. So this would be more towards the axis of shallow or
Deep.
deep, right? In terms of involvement, my goodness, strong involvement, because, right, creating this effective outline, which is not only copying the parts. So all these strategies, the effectiveness of them will depend on their quality, right? Taking notes depends on the quality of the notes, not only the fact that you copied exactly in the way that it is there, right? And underlining or highlighting, oh, just comparing. Outlining and underlining or highlighting, which one would be deeper processing?
Outlining is deeper.
Definitely, right? Definitely. Outlining may help if you have a photographic memory, like myself. It's wonderful, because then you study with colors, but this is not very good in terms of actual learning, because sometimes you just perform this rote memorization. Yes, you are able to parrot, but you are not actually, you have not actually understood. So I'm going to ask you to think about other study strategies, reading strategies, and try to do this exercise. Not now, because I think we are running out of time, and I really want to show you the last part, which is coming now. Okay, so, well, summarizing, reviewing. Yeah, so the last part, which has to do with the title of the talk, which Spranger calls brain compatible teaching. So at the heart of this framework is emotion. So our emotions. Yeah, so for her, emotions have a strong influence on learning, and everything that she says in the book, she's always citing scientific research. So it's not something that she thinks is the case, but she's basing the framework on previous scientific findings. Okay, so students are anxious, depressed, or even angry. They do not receive the information in an efficient way because the brain is captivated by the emotion and turns attention to it. And then when these emotions capture the brain's attention, working memory, as she says, is flooded and cannot be effective in working with the task at hand, because the emotion, you know, being angry or being depressed is there, right? So, and she calls this brain compatible teaching. So this view on the importance of emotions in learning is shared by many other researchers. For example, Antonio Damasio and his team, Mary Helen Mordini Young is there. She has this wonderful book called, wow, have to show you. So, a wonderful book. Yes, Emotions, Learning, and the Brain. So she says, when learning and knowledge are devoid of emotion, when people, oh, sorry. Now, when people learn things by rote, just repeating, memorizing, without paying attention to the meaning, without internally driven motivation, without this sense of interest or real-world relevance, then it is likely that they won't be able to use this to learn efficiently in the real world, okay? Oh, and as I was preparing this talk, I came across this article that came out exactly 10 days ago by Williams et al. And I was really fascinated with this because there she's actually reviewing the literature. The title is The Power of Negative and Positive Episodic Memories. And the group, because it's, I think there are two other authors, yes, they even talk about pedagogical implications, and that's why I decided to bring here. So they say that emotional memories, positive and negative, they are more memorable than neutral ones. But of course, as teachers, right, we need to work with positive memories with our students, right? So what is the scientific evidence for this? She says that negative memories, a negative memory cues other negative memories, yes? And then triggers negative affect, supports negative mood, promotes analytical and detailed processing, elicits behaviors and decisions to avoid event reoccurrence. So student maybe starts being afraid of, yes, sometimes even going to class. This, I think, at some point has happened to all of us. We are afraid of some teachers, especially when we are children, right? Of course, sometimes we find meaning and we learn a lesson from this negative memory. And this supports adaptive self, social, and directive functions. But I mean, this is not something we want, right? Or we can focus on positive aspects, and then we have a positive, create a positive memory from a negative memory. So, but a positive memory acts as reward, buffers against stress, supports positive mood, promotes heuristic and associative processing. So for learning, wonderful. Elicits behaviors and decisions to increase probability of event reoccurrence. So we want that to happen again, right? So we create the context for that to happen again. We want to learn more. Enhances pro-social actions and social connections, okay? So they bring scientific evidence which shows that positive memories are long-lasting and highly accessible. They come to mind more frequently than negative events and can do so involuntarily. They are richly associative, which may increase the likelihood that retrieval of one positive memory cues another, right? So what we learned in class in a positive way, when we try to recall, one event that we recall is going to trigger and bring the other. So for learning, this is wonderful, right? Positive memories, they act as rewards in themselves, right? And can buffer the effects of stress. They become more integrally tied to our sense of self, and they can perpetuate self-esteem, and we all know that we depend on this, right? And become an important part of our life story. So what does this have to do specifically with the classroom? Well, I have already been signaling, but they say that individuals in a negative mood may attend to details and may process information in a more narrow, analytic fashion than people in a positive or neutral moods. By contrast, individuals in a positive mood, they're more likely to process information in a broader manner, focusing on the gist or global theme of the information and often seeing creative connections among the stimuli that others miss. So in terms of learning things from the classroom, this is wonderful. This is all we want as teachers, right? So in general, research shows the central role for the limbic system, although not all researchers mention the word limbic system, but they mention, like Williams et al., for example, they mention some regions that I am going to mention. So what is learned has an affective component, always. So the limbic system is connected to emotional, behavior, memory, and learning. So this is a real brain, so brain compatible teaching. This is what is called the limbic system. As I said, not all authors really recognize, they recognize the structures, the functions, but they don't call it the limbic system. But anyway, just for the purpose of many people do, right? So the limbic system would involve these parts of the brain: the thalamus, the cingulate gyrus, fornix, amygdala, hippocampus, perihippocampus gyrus. And Spranger's framework is based on the scientific research that has to do with emotions and with these areas of the brain. And the 7-step framework is here. So reach, reflect, the 7 R's: recode, reinforce, rehearse, review, and retrieve. So reach, she says, if you can't reach your students, you can't teach them. So you have to find a way so that they are prepared to pay attention to you. Okay? So bring the students' attention, emotion, and motivation to the focus of learning. So this is not, so the first thing you do may not be your objective, because first you want to call their attention. And once they have their attention, then you actually begin your teaching, right? So how can you do that? Any ideas? How can we bring our students' attention? How can we bring this atmosphere that is positive, that we can create positive memories? Any experiences that you can briefly tell us? Anyone? How do you bring your students' attention?
Luis has written connecting state of flow through establishing eye contact and empathy.
Yes, definitely, right? So
Maybe,
try to
sorry,
be relaxed, right? You don't want that face.
Yeah, just 2 more. Maybe always ask them about their feelings, their personal lives, raise their curiosity.
Yeah. So Williams, in fact, Williams et al., this article from 10 days ago, they say, when you tell people, they're telling people in general, but I am going to adapt here. In the classroom, tell students to, tell something good that happened to them, because then when they are able to focus on this positive memory, you have grabbed their attention. They are there with you, okay? Using a song, a story, a poem, movie, a pre-reading activity, and advanced, Spranger talks about advanced organizers. A pre-reading activity has the objective of being performed actually before reading. She talks about advanced organizers because it's more general. It can be before your actual teaching, right? Something that is lively. So, and also vary the type of activity each time, because the brain likes to be surprised, people. The brain does not want the same thing all over again. Things which are predictable, then the student's mind is going to start wandering all around, right? So surprise them. Reflect. Reflection is not a luxury, she says. It is a necessity. And reflection is a form of rehearsal. So bring activities that allow a connection between the new that is being taught and the prior knowledge the student might have about the topic. Make up, she says, for wait time in a classroom. What is wait time? Pause for a few seconds. Ask a question, pause for a few seconds. So the student has time to maybe think about an answer or something is going to come, right? She calls this wait time. Recode. Self-generated material is better recalled. Yes, just as Huston in the involvement load, Huston and Loffer were talking about this need, this intrinsic motivation is going to be more effective. The same here. Material that is generated by the student himself or herself is better recalled. So motivate them to put what has been taught in their own words, bringing examples, inferring, classifying, summarizing, comparing, contrasting, explaining, so on and so forth. Recoding also involves creating images, movement, pictorial representations of what was learned. This movement, I remembered what was created by Abralin. Remember, they have this mode that the researcher puts into a dance. Yes, this academic context. I thought that was very, very creative. Reinforcing, so feedback is vital to learning. You have to give your students feedback because this is the moment for you to tell the student, right, whether he is right, correct, a moment for adjustments, corrections, when the teacher makes sure the content that was learned appropriately. Rehearse to get information into long-term memory. It must be rehearsed. Use strategies which allow the content that was taught to be practiced. For example, repetition, but not only, elaboration, mnemonics, and so on. Review. Without review, most information will be lost from memory. So how should reviewing be done? Match the review to instruction and assessment. So review the content that you have taught. Do not bring something new, because then this is new teaching, right? It's not reviewing. Check for accuracy of the memory that the student has. Give students the conditions to use higher level thinking skills, to analyze, to evaluate, and possibly create alternative ways to use the knowledge. Strengthen the existing networks. For high-stakes testing, practice similar questions under similar conditions. Research shows that, for example, divers, I think Badley carried out this experiment. Divers learned words in another language down there while diving in the ocean, and then they recalled there and in another place. So they were able to recall more words there where they learned. Of course, we are not going to ask our students to dive, but just for you to know, right, that at least the context has to be the same as when learning occurred. Eliminate cramming too many things together. So organization from the part of the student is important, and also from your part. Retrieve in this phase. So memory retrieval depends on cues. So you have to give the students the relevant cues, the cues that are going to help. So the retrieval would be the ability to bring a past event or prior knowledge to one's mind. It is this conscious recollection that we call memory, right? So retrieval will be faster if assessment matches the memory pathways used for instruction and assessment. Now I'm going to close with what Spranger calls teaching for learning. So teaching for learning depends on frequency. So neural pathways need to build and grow strong by repeated exposure to the learning. What you teach has to reoccur, right? Intensity, learning requires rigorous practice. A student will build neural support to the skill in a shorter period of time if she practices intensely. Cross-training, teaching for memory requires strong networks that can connect to other networks. Therefore, different kinds of skills and different forms of memory should be used. Adaptivity, teaching for memory requires that the teacher monitors the student's progress and adjusts the teaching learning situation to meet her needs. And motivation and attention. So these factors are what keeps students interested in their learning. Various strategies will keep students on task. Frequency and intensity rely on these factors. Thank you very much. Sorry, I think I just like 12 minutes over. So I'm ready for your questions. Should I stop sharing so that I can?
I think you can see us better, right?
Yeah. So
So
I'm going to share.
a bunch of claps, right?
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much, Lêda, for your enlightening talk. I'm here checking the stories on Instagram, so people are really posting lots of things and saying that it's mind-blowing. They have been learning a lot. So now it's time for us for questions, guys. Let's see, people are thanking on the chat. Insightful session, right? Awesome. I just got a screenshot of some of the comments that were going on around while you were talking, Lêda. And I want to call attention to Alexandre's comment. He's saying that learning is connection, not perfection. So connection meaning all the time, right? And Laura has written, I've been reading books in English with teens. They suggest me a book they see on Book Talk, like TikTok, and we spend a month delving into the book. They have the need, the motivation, so I have almost zero effort to make them engaged in reading. That's nice, right?
Very, very nice. Yeah, I'm thinking about the first one. Wow. Learning
This
comes
connection.
from not perfection. Wow, that's perfect.
Alexandre, you rock.
Definitely. Yeah, because learning will depend on the quality and number. Remember, all connections that you were able to make with this content in your memory. So you have given this a perfect address, right? It's just like I think about my address, because when I tell people, of course, today you have GPS and all that, but even so, it's very difficult to get to my place. Cynthia knows. So I always created, you know, tips, a lot of tips so that people can find. So with your memory, it's the same, right? You have these cues. Also, the cues are also important. Okay, thank you.
So good. Maria has asked the title of the book you mentioned in the beginning. I think it was How to Teach So Students Remember, right? By Marilee Springer. And in Portuguese, Memória, Como Ensinar para o Aluno Lembrar, certo? I am writing here on the chat. CNA Saquarema has said, awesome, you are inspiring.
Thank you.
I am suspect to say that because I haven't mentioned in the introduction, but Professor Lêda was my advisor in the master's and the PhD. And I always tell everybody she's my academic mom. So I am so happy and really, really, really happy to have her here with us so I can share with you guys a little bit of all this knowledge this awesome woman has to share with us. Yes, I'm so grateful. Yeah, I think Luis is with his hand up. Please, Luis.
So first, I want to thank Lêda for bringing the essence of mind, brain, and education to this talk, which is to share knowledge across the world. And you have overwhelmed us with a fantastic opportunity to dive into the way the brain learns, Lêda. So thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you so much for inspiring us and for sharing everything that you are learning, because we only learn when we teach, and that's
Wow.
exactly what you do, right? Lêda, my question for you is, what intrigues you now? What is your next piece of discovery? What are you looking for? What would you like to go for next? That is my question, and thank you so much for the fantastic talk.
My answer is very simple. Never stop learning. Never. This is what keeps me on. So much so that when I was preparing this talk, I said, I have to bring something that I haven't come across yet. Something new. If I don't learn something, I tell my students when I teach a course, I have to learn something, because otherwise, this is going to be a waste of time. I don't want to repeat the same thing. I want to learn something today. So, and it's so nice to see that at some point in your life, because of course, in the beginning, we learn something and it's there. It seems like compartments, right? And this is the way learning occurs, and it's okay, no problem at all. And then as you move on, it seems like you start, as William Graf said, you start orchestrating your knowledge. So you start allowing yourself to make connections that maybe in the beginning you were kind of you're kind of afraid of doing that and thinking what your peers are going to say. So I'm past that. So yeah, but definitely, Luis, I have to learn something new every day, because this is what just propels me for the future.
Thank you very much, Lêda. I will hand now the floor to other people who want to ask questions. And I just want to say that the 7 R's was my favorite takeaway from your presentation.
Oh, good.
Cool. Before I allow people to speak out loud, I have a question on the chat from Carla. What do you think of translations to teach vocabulary as one of the ways to establish connections? Translations to teach vocabulary.
Okay. So translation would be, of course, it depends on what level you're working on. If it's just like in a glossary, giving, okay, the word in English, translation to Portuguese, and you're on the side of the text. I don't know if this is the case, but this has proven to be not so very effective. Research shows that this is not very effective for memory, because this is not actually going to help comprehension, right? So if you are talking about translating, like asking grammar translation, asking students to translate the whole text, then I would say, from my experience, and also from the evidence that is there, don't do this. No, because then you're going to kill the whole thing, because students, they are going to be very disappointed. If they're beginners, of course, if they're advanced, my goodness, wow. Maybe a project would be to translate, I don't know, a poem, a song, something, even a book, right? If students are advanced, they don't need us anymore, in fact, right? But for beginners, I would say don't do, it's not that you cannot translate, Please, this is not what I am saying. What I am saying is that even in terms of reading, do not ask your students to translate the text because if they are beginners, because for comprehension to actually occur, this mental model, this mental representation of what is going on online as the student, as the reader reads the text, this has to happen. It happens online. Online, not this online, but online in your mind, meaning that if you stop, you're going to break, come back. Then your comprehension is going to be truncated. Your mental model of that specific text needs that you move through the text. So it is the job of the teacher to prepare activities, tasks, yes, in a way that each time the student goes to the text, he or she goes with specific objectives in mind to help the construction of this mental representation that will allow comprehension and retention to occur. Yes? I don't know if I answered the question, but anyway.
You did,
So,
Lêda, you did.
So, yeah. So as we are all excited, I have two people with the hands up. So I think, André, it's your turn, or is it Laura? Let me check here.
I think Laura.
Laura,
Yes.
Laura is first.
Okay, I can't turn on my camera. I don't know if we are not allowed, but I'm not allowed to turn on my camera. Can I? Okay.
I
Yes,
have
sure.
just
Thank you.
given you the right to.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, teacher.
Good
It was
to see
amazing.
you, Laura.
Good to see you. I love it that I was super excited to be here today. And I am super curious because I think I was the only one, probably is wrong, my answer, but I would like if you have time to discuss this a little bit in depth. Because I think when you asked about using dictionary, it is it's considered to be a shallow processing. Am I using the right concept here? Shallow processing?
Yeah, shallow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, why that? Because I remember I answered for like to my mind, I would consider it like really deep processing, you know, when we start to delve into like thesaurus, corpora, and learning how like we can manage a preposition after a word and how it can change the. So I was really curious if you don't mind sharing a little bit more about that.
Okay, so in terms of knowledge construction, I think it's very positive, and I think it's going to get deeper and deeper each time because, for example, if you find a word what does knowing the meaning of this word, of course, is going to help you understand the text and so on and so forth. But this is not going to help you with lexical access, for example, because the next time you encounter the word is surrounded by a different context or even a different meaning, because words have different meanings, right? So the dictionary meaning in that sense, in the form of a list, is not very helpful. That's why it's considered more to the shallow axis than to the deep level. But it's not that it's not negative. Nothing is negative.
Yes, sure.
It's just okay, you might be, as I said, you might be so interested, and then after that you start studying the word and seeing that it comes from, I don't know, this other language. You see my point? So it depends. But what the dictionary gives you in that specific moment does not lead you to very deep learning, because it's going to help you with that specific context.
So, for example, it would lead me to a deep understanding the way I process the information I get from the dictionary. So, like the activities post dictionary,
Yeah.
They might be
Exactly.
considered deeper, but
Yeah.
not the using of dictionary itself. So
Yeah.
that's what I was, okay.
It's
thank
not that you shouldn't use the dictionary. It's not
No,
this.
no.
You're using it.
No,
But
I'm
that's the
thinking-
first step. That's the
Perfect.
first step.
I was just thinking because when, for example, when you need to study for CE or CPE or things like that, we need like to 8 dictionaries, like to get the prepositions and things, you know. So I was thinking about that, and then thank you a lot, teacher. It was amazing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Andre?
Okay, can you hear me, everyone? I feel like
Yes.
there's something weird with my microphone. Okay, so thank you very much, Professor Lêda. It was really amazing, and I think everybody here is very satisfied with your session. But I have a very challenging question, because this is something that I think all teachers are worried about, you know, because if we think about levels of processing, it's really trying to expand our neural connections, you know, to form larger, let's say, you know, mind maps or mental concepts in the brain, so that we can more easily retrieve those things, right? And at the same time, you said that we have to engage our students first so that they can pay attention, and that will lead to learning. But how can we do that if we're always pressed for time because of, you know, curricular demands? We're trying to cover as much content as possible in every lesson, because we have a unit that's running. And then I think most teachers here, they just jump into the content as quickly as possible, because they have to finish that unit, you know, that part of the lesson.
I relate, Andre. I totally relate.
And we know that the forgetting curve, you know, so you showed some statistics, you know, some percentages of how much we lose over time. And of course, if there's emotional engagement, we can probably learn that in the very first time we see that, because we have some sort of, I don't know, connection, deeper connection with the content, and we become fascinated and we can learn that. But how do we simulate that in every lesson? I mean, how can we get our students to really be engaged and pay attention? And how do we explore the time we have to really make our students more involved and to access deeper levels of processing? Because that's the big challenge, right, for all teachers with the time that we have, right? I don't know if my question was too, you know, but I hope it was clear.
Completely clear. I understand. And well, I'm just teaching at the postgraduate program, but I was always an English teacher. So I understand what you were talking about in teaching content. Yeah. So, but I think there is something, for me, the word is not magical, but it's key, which is attitude. The teacher's attitude, and which creates the student's attitude. So, and your attitude is there. Attitude is something, it seems something so subjective, but it's not, because it has to do with the way you prepare your lesson, what you decide to bring to the classroom, how you decide in terms of content. I know that the content sometimes is imposed. It has to be there, but I mean, you have to find meaning if you decided to teach that content, even if you are pressed. I mean, you as the teacher, you have to find meaning in that. So this is the thing, and this is what Spranger talks about, right? The content has to be meaningful. So you have to tell your students, not tell verbally, in your attitude, that what you bring to the class is meaningful to them. Okay? This is so, and as I said, this is going to be spread all over your actions, even before you enter the classroom, as I said, in the choice of text that you bring, in the choice of how you choose to illustrate the content, choice of, I have to teach this content, which is so complex. How am I going to begin? Well, to catch their attention. Maybe it's not something so complicated. So we use stories to grab the students' attention, right? And of course, if the story can have some relation to what you're going to teach, wonderful, perfect, right? Or maybe it's a song, maybe it's, I don't know. Oh, another thing, you have to really know your students. I know sometimes we have, I don't know, 30, 40 students in class. I know it's not easy, but I think your attitude is going to really be the key thing. I'm not saying that it's easy, it's going to happen, you know, like magic. No, it's not this. It involves a lot of work on the part of the teacher first. And then you also have to show your students that, okay, this is my attitude. Everything I bring is meaningful. If it's meaningful to you, then you are here to learn and you want to learn, right? So basically, I think we have to inspire students because so that they can feel motivated to do things outside the class, because class time is really not everything going to happen there, right? But we have to motivate, this is the way I think, we have to motivate them so much that even after class, they want to go on and know more about that. Or yes, but I know, Andrea, it's not easy. I know it's not.
Yeah, but perfect. Thank you very much. I think everybody agrees we have to inspire our students, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's so cool. I have a question from Maria. I think Vinicius has 3 questions, but I will just ask everybody to take a little break. So I'm going to share with you a quick video. It's just 2 minutes from our sponsor. So Geppetto is our sponsor in Brstislav. So just for everybody to see it, Lêda will be still here with us. Everybody keep here because we're going to come back to questions with Professor Lêda. So let me go to sharing my desktop here. Can you guys see YouTube here? Yes. So let me just play here.
Don't forget to share sound. See.
Oh, I think I forgot. Yeah. Let me try again. Let me share with sound. Yeah. Thank you, Luis, for the tip. Let me see what's going on here. Yeah.
Bem-vindo ao Geppetto.
Is it sharing with you? Yes. Can you hear it? Thank you. So let's go.
We can. Go ahead.
Bem-vindo ao Geppetto. O Geppetto utiliza a abordagem de ensino baseada em jogos para atrair e engajar os alunos na aquisição da língua inglesa. O Geppetto disponibiliza mais de 200 lições distribuídas nos níveis do CFR, de pré-A1 a B2. Cada lição é descrita pelo conteúdo trabalhado e também estão classificadas pelos níveis do CFR. As lições podem ser liberadas como dever de casa, ampliação da carga horária, revisão ou mesmo para avaliação da turma. São inúmeras as possibilidades de integração do Geppetto ao programa da escola. Cada uma das lições inclui um arcabouço de mais de 150 atividades que trabalham leitura, escrita, compreensão auditiva e fala, o que totaliza mais de 30.000 atividades na plataforma. No game, as lições aparecem para os alunos em forma de portais, que eles devem entrar para coletar itens e prêmios para construir e customizar o seu mundo. A inteligência artificial do Geppetto é baseada em uma abordagem scaffolded. Os estudantes recebem níveis sucessivos de apoio que auxiliam na aquisição da língua inglesa. Todas as nossas atividades acompanham ilustrações e locuções, ativando inteligências diversas. E também não favorecemos um sotaque específico. Todas as locuções são gravadas em 9 vozes provenientes de 5 países distintos, para que o aluno entenda a diversidade cultural de contextos onde o inglês é utilizado como ferramenta de comunicação. Tudo muito alinhado às propostas da nova BNCC. Para estimular a fala, as atividades de reconhecimento de voz têm seu enfoque em comunicação, compreensão e estímulo à expressão, com perguntas abertas, onde o aluno é convidado a refletir sobre o tema, demonstrar seus interesses e suas opiniões, não apenas ler ou completar lacunas. Além disso, as nossas atividades de vídeo trabalham conteúdos autênticos e de interesse dos alunos. E claro que o educador pode acompanhar o desempenho do aluno no jogo através do dashboard. Comece a testar o Gepeto agora. Conheça as nossas lições e convide seus alunos. Junte-se a nós. Estamos esperando por seus alunos no mundo do Gepeto.
Okay, so thank you people for your attention. So I think I will share Maria's question, right? So Professor Lêda, can you give us more ideas to make students remember us less and the contents more in basic levels of learning?
Sorry. The first part of the question, can you repeat the question?
Yes, can you give us more ideas to make students remember us less and the contents more in basic
Para
levels?
começar a jogar, os alunos só precisam criar uma conta. No momento, nossa plataforma está...
Oops, something happened here. Sorry.
Okay, so remember us less and remember more the content, right? So focus on the content. Focus on the content. You bring their attention to you so that you can actually teach your content. And then you're going to teach your content using those steps. One example, of course, you can do this and teach in different ways, but Spranger, she gives us this framework, right? So bringing their attention to you is the first step. But then after that, the focus has to be on the actual content that you want to teach. So once you do this, once you start asking them to recode, review, and so they are going to learn the content, right? And you are going to be just, you know, a teacher. Sorry to say that, guys.
That's it. Maria, do you feel satisfied? And I thought that Vinicius had 3 questions, but no, he was just agreeing with Andrea and Luis. But Vini, if you have any questions, feel free to interact with Professor Lêda or anyone else, right?
Professor Lêda, do you think that we maybe are too focused on how we do things in the class, and maybe we could be more helpful on how they study on their own outside the class? Because I think the way the brain learns, we do what we need to do in class, but the way they study at home is sometimes counterproductive, don't you think?
Definitely, definitely, definitely. That's why I said we inspire them, but in fact, they are the ones in order to learn, because, you know, the class is those, I don't know, even if you have 2 hours, only those 2 hours, right? They have to do a lot on their own, definitely. And I'm always for study strategies. And I am this person, you know, not only as a teacher, not only it's because of all the research, but for myself, because I noticed that they work.
Yeah.
They work,
Yeah.
so they might work for others too. So
yeah. Andrea, our peer here, he has a fantastic article he wrote, I think 10 years ago, on how you could like plan and strategize the way you study with focus on spaced repetition, retrieval. If you could put your link there in the chat so people could have a look, Andrea, that is really helpful.
Not 10 years ago, okay, Luis? It was like maybe 5 years ago.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes, I will find the link.
Thanks, Professor Lêda. Thank you very much.
okay.
That's amazing. Fabiola has written here on the chat, it's a pleasure to be here to learn something today with quotations, right? With you, Professor Lêda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on, people, more questions.
And if you guys want to open your mic or your camera, just send us a message in the chat. We will do so. because this is a
Yeah.
very special opportunity with Professor Lêda here.
Actually, Luis, I think you need to allow everybody to open their cameras because we need to take a very beautiful
Oh,
screenshot.
how do I
Is
allow
everybody
everyone? I don't know how to allow everyone. Wait.
Can you do it? Let me see if I can.
I'll do one by one.
Yeah.
Ask to start
Okay.
video. Just go chatting.
Okay. While you do that, so people just be ready to open your cameras because we want to take a nice screenshot. We are so happy here to learn so much, right? To make us reflect.
Rudy loves taking pictures. He's a big fan of taking pictures. I know.
And I don't know if you guys noticed, because as I have more experience with Professor Lêda, she creates all her classes connecting to all these principles. So probably you could feel these 7 R's, you know, being little by little tackled throughout her
definitely.
talk, right? So it's something in practice. It's not just theoretical, right? Yeah.
If somehow we can insert all of these strategies in our daily teaching, as André said, the way we do things would be more important than what is being taught, and that can be sort of learned better, and that would work so much better.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have allowed everybody, but I've tried. If you haven't had the chance, send me a message in the chat and
let me check. I'm gonna double check.
Please, Rudy, because you're better than me in this.
Yeah,
and Vanessa liked my connectome. Here, Vanessa.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, Luis. We love that. Yeah. Let me just read Vanessa's comment here. Everything we have been talking about here today can be easily applied to how we too learn things, right? And to how we teach. Yeah. So should everybody open the cameras maybe? I don't know. I see Laura there. Beautiful. Oh, Isabel is not
we have
allowed.
a great audience. Thank you very much. Isabel is not allowed.
Yeah, let me see if I can.
Because Rudy, this is Rudy's thing, you know, Isabel.
Yeah.
No, you are allowed.
Yeah, see if you can, please. Yeah.
So many nice faces.
Okay, everybody's allowed to start their cameras.
Is there a way in Zoom that we can put everybody in the screen?
Yeah, because I see 2 pages here.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that, like with everyone. Let me see. Full screen, gallery, nah.
Let me try this immersive thing.
I don't think you can, Luis, but I might be wrong.
No, I know, Andrea, because I've hosted like 100 people, and I've had to take like 4 or 5 shots, but this, I think there is a way.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Let's just try while people are still opening their cameras. So beautiful people.
And we take 2 pictures, no problem. See, let's go.
I think it's easier, right?
Yeah. So everybody say brain.
Who's gonna take the screenshot?
I'm not good at that. I'm not good at that.
Okay, I can do it. I can do it. Oops, let me just use the correct things here. Everybody smiling, please. Yay, let me see. 1 is here. Let me just save this.
Yeah, and then the next page.
Now let me try the next page here. Now I don't have 2 pages.
No, everybody's here.
Yeah. Everybody fitted. Okay, cool. So I think the picture is beautiful. Everybody's smiling. Yeah, so soon it will be there on our Instagram account. So we'll be sharing the picture there with everybody. So good to see familiar faces here and new faces. Let me see if we have more questions.
I think we're good. Professor Lêda has been so generous.
Share the picture now. We gotta check if it's really good. Come on.
She's gonna put it in our MBE SIG followers. Are you all there?
Are you
Guys
in our
should,
WhatsApp
you
group?
guys should all be there. Is anybody here in the talk not in our WhatsApp group of the MBE SIG followers? If you are, send us a message and we will put the WhatsApp link here.
Yeah,
Leonardo, you look great in the picture. I just saw you there, okay? I shared in the group, so don't worry.
And
you're smiling. Yeah.
I trust you. I trust you.
Yeah.
I've just shared it on our WhatsApp group, and I also put the link to the ones who are not in our WhatsApp group. And if you haven't followed us on Instagram, please do it, because it's gonna be there, right?
Professor Lêda, once again, thank you so much for your time. Professor Lêda's talk is a fantastic bridge to what we're going to do in our PC on the 13th of July. So she has done a fantastic talk here that is going to put in your mind some of the info that we are going to, with the brilliant Cynthia Baylor, bring you guys in the international conference on the 13th of July here in Mackenzie. So Cynthia, please tell your audience and Professor Lêda how much this has brought inspiration for your
Yes, you are totally right, Luis, because on July 13th, it's the first day of our international conference, BTIC, right? So we have our pre-conference event from MBE. If you haven't registered for participating, I put the link there. It's also very easily to find on Rusty Soul's website, right? So we are going to be together in the morning from 10 to 12 to talk a little bit about we feel, therefore we learn, that Professor Lêda mentioned in her talk, right? So the role of social emotions, social interaction, and emotions to education. This will be the morning part. So I will be guiding you through this discussion on emotions and social interaction. And also in the afternoon from 2 to 4, we're going to have a very different and very interesting way to talk about face-to-face and online learning effects on the brain, what science and the pandemic have taught us. So we're going to be counting on the participation of Professor Lêda. So she's going to be participating not face-to-face, but she's going to be there with us through a video. So she's already working on letting us know more about online reading, all the challenges, the comparison to reading in paper, reading on the screen, and all these issues. And also we're going to be having Professor Janaína Weisheimer from the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte. She's going to be talking about Zoom fatigue, sleeping, and all these issues to learning. And also we're going to be counting on Professor Altair from Unifesp. He's going to be talking also about this comparison between face-to-face and online. And come on, we all here, teachers, we have gone through so many challenges during the pandemic, and also here in this coming to normal, right? Which is not so normal. So I will be guiding the discussions, and these 3 researchers will be participating with us through video, okay? Because it's very difficult to put all these people together in São Paulo, inside the university on that day, because everybody has lots of appointments and compromises, right? So that's our program. So we hope to see you there. Also, Rudy has put here on the chat that we're going to be having also an event in September. So if you are not able to join us face-to-face in July, okay, keep following us on Instagram, because we're going to be updating you with content and tips and articles and books and videos and suggestions for you to study and to enlarge your knowledge. And on September, we're going to be counting with Professor Ingrid Finger. So she's going to be talking about exposure in bilingual programs. So and also in December, we have another event. So keep updated, because we are going to be having lots of nice events. I will put the link to our Instagram account here again on the chat if you missed, right? I don't know if people have still questions. Otherwise, we are coming to our closing. Yeah, the link is there, Laura, for you too. like us. Yeah.
I think we should give Professor Lêda the last 5 minutes so she can.
Yeah, so she can wrap up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, Professor Lêda, thank you. I cannot thank you enough, right?
Okay, so well, what I can say is that I'm very, very pleased to be here, very happy to be here. And one thing is that I always say yes to Cynthia because she was very close to me for I don't know how many years. MA, PhD, 6 years. So we got to know each other very well. So thank you very much, Cynthia, for the invitation and the organizers for also inviting me, giving me this chance to talk about what I love, really, which is I love what I do, and it's just amazing. And I hope that, well, I know each one of you is going to take a message with you, but I do hope you take with you the message that also that learning is the key to everything. Everything, really, I think. Yes, so motivation can come from learning new things. And if you are a motivated teacher, I think your students will see that and will also be motivated, right? And also take with you that scientific findings, they are very important, not only there in science, but in the classroom, right? So although many of us work from this perspective, which is with pure research, basic research, but some of us try to make this connection, and I think this is very, very important.
Yeah,
yes,
Professor Lêda, I think that is exactly what you're doing here. You're actually bringing science into the practical use, into the classroom, and that is one of our key missions in MBE. So thank you very, very much for that too, because we had said in the past that research was too far away from the classroom, and
yeah.
we are closing the gap, and that is really, really interesting and important.
Yeah, thank you, Luis, for saying that, because this is, I believe that is the case, right? Science matters. We should continue carrying out our research and informing the classroom. I think this is possible, or at least having this aim in mind, right? That at some point, these scientific findings will inform the classroom. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Very nice audience. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank everybody. Yeah, let's keep on learning, right?
Thanks, Cynthia, for organizing this great talk with Professor Lêda.
Come on, I couldn't do it without you guys and without her acceptance, right?
Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great weekend.
You.
Thank you.
Have a great Saturday. Bye.
See you on the 13th, all of you.
Yeah, see you there, guys.
I'm going to close the room. Bye.
Bye.